Hello everybody, Harrison101 back at it once again with a brand new video. Sorry it's been a bit of a delay, I've been taking some time off with the family. First of all, I'd like to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of my viewers and subscribers, everybody who's taken the time to watch my videos over the past 4 months. You guys have all been fantastic. You can't see it, but I'm wearing my Tech Santa hat right now. It's glorious and I hope you all love it. I wish you could see me, but I don't feel like breaking my webcam out just to show off my hat. But seriously, I hope you guys all have an amazing Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I really hope you have a good one. I know I will be. And this is my Christmas is my present to you guys. You get to enjoy this end season review of Formula 1. I know it's been a bit of a delay, and I know I promised I'd get around to it in the end, but here it is. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. See if I can cram my thoughts on the entire season down into about 21 minutes. Now, for the race itself, which you're watching at, spoiler alert, it's not very exciting. So that's why I kind of made this my season review, because you know you can have something good to listen to while I kick some serious ass. So, talking about the Formula 1 season in general, I think it's been a good season. I think it hasn't been a great season. There are some things I've certainly enjoyed. There's been some entertaining elements to it, despite the fact it's been dominated by one man pretty much. But there's been a lot of interesting things that have definitely been worth talking about. Now, one of the first things I want to cover is the return of the inclusion of DRS, the drag reduction system. My overall thoughts on DRS, and you know, these things are difficult to implement. It was the first season we've had DRS, and the thing is that you can never be too sure on how things are going to go when you first start them. But overall, I've liked DRS. What it's done is that it's definitely made overtaking a little bit easier. I think in some places they need to fine tune where to put the zone and when it's activated, so that, you know, it can further encourage overtaking, because sometimes it really didn't work very well. I mean, look at Brazil for example, where we had hardly any overtakes down into that second after the center S down to turn 3, mainly because the straight wasn't long enough and the TRS was well activated fine. It didn't have enough time to get a proper speed advantage or enough to overtake into that corner, for example. And India having 2 DRS zones was another big example of that. The home straight having a DRS zone which nobody could pass down because the straight again wasn't long enough. So I think they need to fine tune where they put these zones, and also like to think that what it's done is also allow back markers to get out of the way easier, and it's let faster cars come through easier without being stuck behind like in the old days. I remember a famous story, I think it was 2001, where David Coulthard on Monaco was stuck behind Jos Verstappen, and he just couldn't pass him for like 30 odd laps, and he was stuck in like 18th place. I thought it was hilarious because I wasn't a fan of McLaren at the time, but you know, it's true that these cars are getting held up by clearly faster cars because there's nowhere to pass them. DRS allows them to come out of the way, which is definitely a helpful feature. Even though it's kind of made KERS look a bit irrelevant now you think about it. I mean, the KERS tool isn't really forcing much overtaking. I think it's more of a qualifying tactical tool than something that's really meant to be used in the race for overtaking. I never really quite saw the point of it in a race unless you're passing someone, and when DRS is around, it's kind of made KERS a little bit pointless to me. But that's my overall thoughts on that. I've got to say my favourite part of the year has had to have been, without question, the Massa Hamilton scrap of 2011. 6 times over the course of the season they had some form of contact on the track, and that feud has definitely spilled over into public nature. I can't remember all 6, but I know Japan was one. I know India was probably the most famous one. Singapore was another one. I can't think of the other ones, but there's definitely the 3 there. I know. Oh yeah, Silverstone was another one. Last corner scrap. That was very interesting indeed. I will also say is that these guys have been they're so entertaining. You know, I kind of gave Hamilton a hard time earlier this season in my race reviews, but what I will say is that the guy is wonderful to watch. I know he's based a lot of himself as a driver off of the late Ayrton Senna, and that's not a bad thing in the sense of Ayrton Senna was spectacular every time he got in a race car. But he's a wonderful guy to watch, and he you race to win in this sport, and that's something that people need to take a hold of, and that's what Lewis does so well. But it kind of makes him unliked, and Lewis has had some pretty bad results. I mean, if you look at his calendar over here, his season, he ended up 5th in the World Championship. I mean, there's a second. He had 3 race wins in UAE. He had a race win in Germany, and he had the race win in Istanbul. Is that Istanbul? No, sorry, that's China, my bad. I got my facts confused. But there's been some poor results here. I mean, 2 retirements, an 8th, a 6th, 4th, 5th, a 7th in India. I mean, that's not good enough for Lewis and a guy of his ability. So it's been an interesting season for Lewis. Definitely one of the more standout guys of 2011 for the wrong reasons. Hasn't really had that competitive season he thought he was going to have. I mean, you could tell by the end of the season he just wanted it all to end. Really, he finished strong. He definitely had that great win in Abu Dhabi with his mum there, and you could see he was just genuinely so happy to have her there as his rock. And you could see that he wanted the season to be over. He's had a rough year. Not very good results. I mean, he clashed with Felipe a lot, someone who he used to think was his best friend. I mean, if you've ever read his book, Lewis Hamilton, My Story, you'll know all about that. And you'll know that also that he was very close with Felipe. Now they're hardly on speaking terms, which is actually really sad. You don't want to see that in the sport at all. And yeah, I mean, hopefully he'll get his head back in the game, and next season we'll see the true Lewis, the one that we know and love to watch. My favourite race of the season, definitely Canada. In fact, I think Canada may be my all-time favourite race. What a friggin' epic race that was. Started as a washout, we had all kinds of contacts and collisions. Webber and Hamilton tagged Jenson Button, took himself out of the race, almost killed Jenson Button's race. Could have been so much worse for him, but we all know how that went for Jenson in the end. It looked like it was all Red Bulls to win. The track was drying out at the end. It was delayed for 2 hours. We all thought we weren't going to get a race. And then I've got to give massive props to the BBC team, Jake Humphrey, Martin Brundle, and all the guys at the BBC for staying with it the whole way. I mean, even though it went 4 or 5 hours, didn't really end till I think it was 10 o'clock in the UK, which never happens. I've got to say much props to Jake Humphrey and the crew for that one, because they stuck with it all the way to the end. And what an ending! Jenson Button picking guys off after going through the pit 6 times to win. Jenson himself said it was his all-time favourite race win, and can you blame him? It was friggin' spectacular. So I've got to give special credit to Canada, and what a race that provided. I love the Canada atmosphere, I love the track. It's clearly something special, and it produced a very, very special race there. So much love to Canada. Now, I've got to look at one thing here that's going to be interesting as well, is that I'm going to have a quick look at the World Championship table, and I'm going to run through some guys I want to talk about quickly, because it's a season review. I'm going to talk about some guys. My award for the Best of the Cars That Don't Matter award has to go to Heikki Kovalainen. He definitely pulled out some very good results, considering the car he was in. That Lotus, as we all know, is far from competitive, but they're definitely knocking on the door. They were definitely knocking on the door some points. I think, if I look at this table here, I am right in saying that he and Jarno Trulli had the best joint best overall results of the season, both coming in 13th in a race. Heikki came 13th in Monza, and Jarno Trulli was 13th twice, once in Australia and once at Montreal. No, sorry, take that back actually. Antonio Liuzzi had a 13th place finish in Montreal as well. So, as you can see, those guys were definitely knocking on the door this season. Lotus, I think, has got the right man under the helm with Tony Fernandez, also owner of QPR Football Club. I think that team's going to develop well, and hopefully with a little bit of luck, they'll be actually getting some points next season, because they look like they've got the guys to be able to do it. Running up the leaderboard, 19 drivers scored points over the course of the season, at least a point. Pastor Maldonado was the worst of the point scorers, only the 1/10th place, and that was in Belgium actually. Sorry, he had 6 race retirements. I think he had the most retirements of any man in the field. He had 6. and a lot of them weren't very good. He had 2 retirements at the start of the season, another one in Montreal, and then 3 in the last 4 races: Japan, Korea, and Brazil, non-finishes. It's a shame about Pastor. He probably won't be keeping his seat for next season, which is a shame because I think the guy did show some ability, but considering the car he had, even so, he had some pretty poor finishes. I mean, 18th, 17th, 18th, 15th, 18th, not great. Bruno Senna scored 2 points for a 9th place in Monza. He's got some potential. I really think he's gonna do great next season. If Renault give him the seat, I don't think they will, which is going to be really unfortunate. That's just a prediction on my part. I think Bruno's got some ability, and I think that Renault car really fell back towards the end of the season. If you look at him, Vitaly Petrov and Nick Heidfeld, and you look at their results over the course of the season, they were so inconsistent. I mean, the first 2 races that Renault got on the podium, Vitaly Petrov came 3rd in Australia, Nick Heidfeld came 3rd in Malaysia, and you can see some good points finishes across the board early on. If we go from here until maybe Silverstone, there's a 3rd, a 9th, an 8th, 7th, 8th, 8th, 5th, 8th again, and then the second half of the season, Vitaly just kind of fell off the wagon a little bit. Then you've got a 12th, a 9th, a 17th, a 9th, a retirement, another retirement, 11th, 13th. Bruno Senna down the other end of the field was 15th, 16th, 13th, 12th, 16th, 17th, besides the 9th place in Monza. It wasn't very good, and you could tell that Renault were just changing and chopping drivers back and forth. I think that team's really disorganised, but with the Iceman coming back next season, I'm looking forward to see what he could do in a car. I've said this before, I think he's going to be very, very good. So again, I hope Bruno gets the seat for history's sake. It's always going to be amazing to have a Senna on the grid in some way, shape or form, but I don't think it's going to happen, which is going to be really unfortunate. Rubens, 4 points over the season. That's really unfortunate. I mean, can you forget 2 years ago when Rubens was a World Championship contender? I mean, don't you think the guy deserved the world title, considering all the stuff he had to put through as Michael's teammate and then Jensen's teammate? He's never been the headlining guy of a team, and that's kind of unfortunate, but the guy is a class act, a credit to the sport, an ambassador for the sport. And I don't want to see him go, but I can completely understand if he does. I hope somebody gives him a seat. He does deserve one. He's done decently with a car that clearly has very little pace over the season, the Williams. You see his results here: 13th, 2 retirements at the start of the year, 13th, 15th, 17th. He had the 2 9th places in Montreal, no, Monaco and Canada. I keep confusing like Montreal and Monaco because of the flags. It's crazy, but yeah, he had the 2 9th places there, then he had the 12th and 13th, retirement 13, 16, 12, 13, 17, 12, 15, 12, 14. Knocking on the door of points, but not very good, which is unfortunate. Sergio Perez did a good job with 14 points over the course of the season, a 9th, a 7th, a 10th, an 8th, and a 10th. He's definitely been a guy who looked like now and again he could trouble some point scorers, and again I think he's done very well for himself this season. Sebastian Buemi, who recently got cut by Toro Rosso, 15 points. His best result was 2 8th places, and 1 in Hungary, 1 in Australia. 5 race retirements though, which isn't very good. 1 in Great Britain, Hungary, Singapore. What's the other ones here? Sorry, not Singapore, Japan I should say, sorry, and India and Abu Dhabi. Paul di Resta is another guy going up the table. He only came in 13th in the World Championship with 27 points, but I think Paul di Resta gets my vote for Rookie of the Year. I think he was fantastic this year, very consistent, not very many race retirements. In fact, he only had 1 race retirement in the entire season, which I think is the joint least with Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel, who only ever had 1 race retirement over the course of the season. Very consistent. Scored some good points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points finishes over the course of the season. 10th, a 7th, an 8th, a 10th, 9th, and 8th, and the highlight being a 6th in Singapore, which was a great result from him. I'm really looking forward to seeing Paul di Resta next season, alongside Nico Hülkenberg, a guy that I think should definitely give Paul a good push next season. Hopefully, with the right car, Paul can get to that next level, which is something I'd really like to see. Kamui Kobayashi, had a very middling end of season, but he definitely did good the first half of the season. I mean, first half of the season he had 6 straight point finishes, 7th, 10th, 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 5th and 7th, from Malaysia all the way through to Monaco. Then the 16th for retirement, then another 9th, and then it kind of got a bit mediocre, but then he got 2 points finishes at the end, a 10th in Abu Dhabi, a 9th in Brazil. Again, liking Kamui, definitely aggressive driver, love seeing him drive. Again, I hope he gets a seat for next year. What's odd is Nick Heidfeld got up to 34 points, but never really got to that next level. Was cut by Renault halfway through the year. Was never quite revealed as to why he was cut, which is quite bizarre. Going up the leaderboard a little bit now, Vitaly Petrov, like I spoke about earlier, with 37. I don't know if he'll get that seat next year, you know. I'm not convinced. It could be interesting to see what happens. Again, he started out very strong, kind of fell apart a little bit in the middle. Ended up with 37 points. Don't know what he's going to do. Adrian Sutil, despite the fact he was 9th in the world title, has been cut by Force India. I find that a bit bizarre, to be honest with you, because he did do good, even though he was a bit inconsistent here and there. Got off to a slow start. Michael Schumacher had his next jump up into 8th place. He had 76. Michael Schumacher went and showed this season that he's still got it, and I think he's still getting used to these modern day cars. But there's some very good, solid results here. I mean, a 4th in Canada, a 5th in Belgium, a 5th in Monza, a 5th in India, a 6th place in Spain. The guy is still putting out some good results, and I think he's still worthy of keeping his seat at Mercedes, even though they really should be knocking on the doors of podiums. Not a single podium for either one of their drivers over the course of the season. Like before, Schumacher was closely with his 4th place in Montreal. Nico's had some decent results. Bit more consistent than Michael Schumacher, not so many retirements. He had 89 points in the end. 2 5th places was his best results in China and in Turkey. A few 6th places here and there as well. Next we crack into that Power 6, and bottom of that was Felipe Massa. He had 118. Again, very entertaining clashes with Lewis Hamilton. My favourite moment with Massa was definitely when he tapped Hamilton on the arm and said, "That's how you win world championships," after they tagged at Singapore. It was so funny. I actually loved that moment. But again, Felipe Massa, you can't help but think he's had a disappointing season. He had 118 points. The next man nearly scored twice as many as him, and that was Lewis Hamilton with 227, who again I've already spoken about. Into the top 4, Fernando Alonso definitely kind of proved that this season he can still, pound for pound, is still an exceptional driver. The only man outside the McLaren's and Red Bulls to have a race win at Silverstone after taking advantage of the Red Bull pit cock-up. Scored 257 points, was only 1 point behind 3rd place man Mark Webber, and only 13 behind Jenson Button, who had an astonishing second half of the season, despite the fact Vettel was still dominant. Button was definitely the number 2 guy over the course of the second half of the season, even though it was much more blurry the first half. Once all the cars settled down, Button stood out as the clear number 2 man. Like I said, Fernando Alonso just drove the nuts off that Ferrari. He pushed it to where it really shouldn't have gone as a car performance-wise. Ferrari just haven't got their act together building quality cars like they used to. I think now their bulletproof reliability hasn't been there anymore, and it's not been as consistent, and the other guys have caught up a little bit. Ferrari, I don't think, stand out as much anymore. Got a couple of minutes left to talk about the remaining guys. Mark Webber, disappointing year, I think, by his standards. Only 1 race win right at the end at Brazil. He was consistent, and that was always Mark Webber's best quality. Only 1 race retirement in Monza. The other performances, his worst was 5th. So he did do very well. He was on the podium 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. He did good. Jenson Button. I've got to mention just in a minute, but I've got to say Webber needs to get his act together for next season, because he's an older guy and he could easily find himself losing his seat to somebody faster. Jenson Button, amazing season from him, second half. Shame he couldn't capitalise early on Sebastian Vettel when he was extremely dominant. I mean, Vettel has been amazing this season, there's no doubt about it. It's not just the car, the guy is an exceptional talent. Through the first 9 races, his worst position was second, and he had 6 race wins in that process as well. I mean, besides the one freak retirement in Abu Dhabi, his worst result was 4th, and that was in Germany, his home track, ironically enough. And you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 race wins, and 1, 2, 3, 4 fourth places as well. So 15 times, so 16 times he was on the podium, only 1 retirement and 1 4th place. Sebastian Vettel is amazing, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think a lot of fans were bored with Vettel being top, but the question you've got to ask yourselves, were you bored when Michael Schumacher was so dominant? There's a fun thought for you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this season review. Let me know what you thought of the season. Comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. Again, a very Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of my subscribers and viewers. I hope you have an amazing time, and I will catch you after the Christmas break. I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching, and Merry Christmas.